We met at Mike
Knight's podcast.
Yes. Were you on, okay? So were you like a regular on his podcast, or you just happened to be there?
So he did mine, right? I don't remember how I met Mike. Let me drink some of my caffeine.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. It's been a long weekend. He did mine. I don't know if did you know he started his because I kind of rejected him to be on my podcast.
Really?
Yeah, I think he told me when he did the Loboden, he messaged me, and I think he just started doing comedy. He started doing it again, and then he messaged me, and I was like, all right, have you been on any other podcasts? You do shows? Like, let me know a little about yourself. And I don't even know how he responded. And then I was like, and then it kind of like butthurt him a little bit, and he was like, I'm gonna start a podcast, fuck this dude. And then looking back, I was like, I get it. Like some guy I never heard of, he's like, let me do your podcast, and I'm like, can you qualify yourself a little bit? And he was like, you son of a bitch, how dare you? And that's how he started his.
I have respect for that move.
And I have a few of those spite ones.
Really?
Yeah, one with Brian Morton from Laugh Factory, who's now in New York Comedy Club. And there's people I like, Ricky March, who used to do Flabby the Affy. That's around here somewhere, but it burned down. But
you're from Chicago?
I grew up in the suburbs, Waukegan.
Okay.
I was born in Los Angeles. I came here when I was 6. I used to spend the summers in L.A. I used to love L.A. I'd go in there like in a week, but now I don't. But so I guess the suburbs, and then I come to the city. Like when I did comedy consistently, I was out here 6 nights a week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, people. I know that every time I meet people from the burbs, they make sure to emphasize like I'm not technically from Chicago because people get furious apparently.
Yeah. And I just don't I like when I leave Illinois.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I'm far enough away, not Wisconsin, but if I live far enough away, if I have to get on a flight somewhere and they ask me where I'm from, I say Chicago. Right. Because then I'm like, Waukegan, what's that? Well, it's kind of by Gurnee. There's Six Flags. Like north of the city, like Chicago.
Let's just say fuck. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if I'm here, you have people from Chicago. And I don't care. I'm not from Chicago. I don't claim Chicago. Right. I don't like the city. I kind of like the south side. Like I'm here, I'm walking to see you, and I'm like, I hate the north side. It just
why do
it irks me. It's like,
what is it about the north side that you don't like?
Is it? I don't know what it is. Like I think we talked about it. Like, is it yuppies that are here? It feels like it could be in my head, but it's like the south side feels more. Even if the white people are racist, they're not. It's like
we did talk about. Okay.
The tea, they drink their tea like this, and like. I like this part seems a little bit less.
This is like a very Mexican area.
Yeah, I saw an Asian and a Muslim lady, and so I was like, all right, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't live.
But when you get closer to like, is it by Lincoln Lodge? It gets a little, or Wicker
Lakeview, Wicker Park.
It's like people that aren't from Chicago that move in, and then
gentrification.
That, and it's like
I remember. Okay, we'll probably get into it naturally, but I do remember talking with you on the pod. I remember being in the podcast. And I remember being like, oh, there's a lot of shit I probably disagree with this guy.
Yeah.
And I got so excited because that is always the most interesting type of podcast is when people disagree. Like, I don't want to...
Well, comedy, any art, if there's no, like, conflict, it's not entertaining. It's like, oh, everything goes happy. Yeah. You can't go up there on stage and be like, oh, they had a great day. Everything's... Like, where's the conflict at? Like, you learned that in literature class. I remember. That's what... makes it entertaining.
So it sounds like I've been in Chicago for like 2 years now, going on 3. It sounds like you've been in the area doing comedy for a minute.
Yeah, I think I started. The pandemic probably would have been 6 years. I think
okay, so when 2020 hit, it had been about 6 years.
Probably.
What was the
September would have been 6-year anniversary. Maybe it just passed. I probably have the date. I do have it somewhere in my phone when I did my first mic.
What was the inspiration to just double checking this? What was the inspiration to starting comedy?
Me and my girlfriend broke up and my dog died. That started the whole thing.
We'll talk about conflict. Okay.
Yeah. So I always wanted to do comedy, right?
Yeah.
And then, but I never went to a mic, and I would email. I was always a comedy fan because my parents had a black box, so you get free cable. So I got Comedy Central, so I'd watch just stand up. And then I'm a comedy fan, and I just was because it was on. I liked it, and I watched it. And as I got older, I was like, I think I want to do this. So I would email jokes to myself, and then I'd get them as like text message or something. I'd email myself these jokes through my phone, and they just collected for like 2 years. And I put them in a folder on my Hotmail account, right?
Ooh, Hotmail.
I still have it, but I'm slowly getting rid of it because I think my Facebook gets hacked every week because it's like, you know, on my credit report, I get this email's compromised, and it's been compromised for 3 years, but I still like, all right, I need to do something. Like your doorknob, like I should do. Now it's getting to the point like, all right, my Facebook is getting hacked every week, so I should fix my doorknob. Yeah. So I was, so I started. What really inspired me, I was in South Texas. It was a place called the Cena Day in McAllen, Texas, and I went to the comedy night there. My buddy lived there. The guy who hosted, Mario Salazar, ended up actually being on my podcast a few months ago because he was in Chicago. I saw him. I was like, hey, you want to do it? I made it happen. And then I saw a guy, you know, it was the guest spot, and I watched him, and he sucked. And I was like, and I've been writing my jokes, and I was like, I can do better than this. Like, at least I can do a little bit better than this. I was like, I got to do it. Because I've heard this a bunch of times. Like, you get inspired by, like, when I watch Chris Rock, and I'm not inspired. It's like, oh, that's awesome, but I don't think I can do that. But when I saw that, I was like, I could do this. Like, why is he on stage and I'm not? And then I started going to mics. I went to the Laugh Factory open mic. I watched. I went to the Zanies. It was like it was an open mic. It was really just a newcomer showcase. I think Dobie Maxwell was hosting it, who ended up doing the podcast. He was an old road comic. Bitter.
Like about his career.
Yeah, but now that he kind of stopped doing comedy, like when I had him on, he's like chill, whatever. But at the end, he just became super bitter.
It's interesting how I think anything in the entertainment industry, if you are not succeeding, that it's really hard to fight that anger at everything. I know that feeling.
He was fucking angry.
So he quit comedy?
I think he's like, he might do some stuff here, but he kind of like semi-retired. And when I had him on after, he was like kind of chill and helpful. But if a few years before, he was like, he was all about being clean and telling you to be clean. Because back, you know, when getting that 5-minute set back in the days when he started during the comedy boom, that was important. So he stuck with it in his head. But things have changed, you know what I mean? And
it sounds like, I don't know this guy at all, but it sounds like he let other people control his art a little bit too much.
The business side of it. And it's like, just do what you want to do and enjoy it, you know what I mean? And I think sometimes even I get like that. I start thinking like, oh, if I have this or if I do that, and I go back, you know, you think of numbers and it's like, all right, just whatever. Just like right now, the Libsyn, wherever I look at my numbers for the audio, I have to go to another site now. I click on a different thing to see the numbers, so I haven't seen my numbers. I used to see them every day when I log in. Now I have to click on a second thing. I'm not doing that, and that has helped me because I'm just thinking about the product or the content or the art, not the stupid numbers.
Were you always like when you first started stand up? I know that it is so it sounds like somebody was sucking and you're like, I could do that.
Yeah, because I always wanted to do it, but I was like, I need to do that because if he's on there and I haven't, like, what are you doing?
It makes it feel feasible.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like you got into it not for money or fame.
No.
You just wanted to be.
I always enjoyed it, and then I was like, people told me I was funny. I think I remember. I don't know if I'm funny anymore.
Yeah.
In regular life, because I don't think do I make jokes? Ever since I started doing stand up, I bet in my regular life, like, I don't even know if I'm funny or if I try to be funny. I might be naturally, but I don't. Like, my girlfriend makes more jokes than me. I don't make shit. I'm just like chilling.
I'm the same.
It's exhausting.
Being like, there's people who I've met that are just naturally kind of quippy. Yeah. And then there's people who are naturally funny because how strange they are. Yeah. I feel just kind of regular, but I get what you're saying.
People say. I've always been told I'm weird by like anybody, but whatever.
What type of weird do you think you are? Do you think
I'm not autistic? No, okay. I think I'm normal, but like I know I say I have weird thoughts and I say things very randomly. I think I have some type of ADHD. I've been told by people, not by a doctor yet. I actually went to the doctor and I have to fill something out and then I haven't. So that's the next step. Like, you know, like for 3 years ago, they're like, all right, you got to call this number. And then I was like, to get the appointment, I was like, all right. And I called it. I was on hold and it didn't happen.
Life.
So it's like I'm doing fine, probably. So I'll call it at one point.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, so I saw the people, they sucked. I went to the mics. Yeah. And then what really happened was my dog got hit by me and the girl I was dating were kind of like
off and on.
Like on the fence and like, but I'm not I would never break up with somebody. or I never have. I don't have it in me. Like at that point, I was like, I don't care how miserable I am. I don't want to deal with that.
Really?
Her crying and what? I was like, I'll be unhappy the rest of my fucking life. Then deal with that.
How old were you at the time?
I'm probably mid-20s, I'm thinking, or late 20s. Okay. I'm not good with numbers. I'm 39 now. Okay. So somewhere in there, right? And then dog gets hit, and she calls me, and I'm like, what the hell? So we go over there, take him to the vet or whatever. They take air out of his lungs, comes back, all right, go home. Then she calls me at 2 a.m. He keeps pacing back and forth. So I have to caddy the next day at a golf course. I worked on the weekends. So it was a big tournament. I never miss tournaments. I call him, was like, I'm probably going to miss it. My dog, whatever. So I go over there. We go, and he's panting back and forth. He's not sitting down. I was like, oh, that's not a good sign. So then we take him to the 24-hour place. And as he's going into the door, I see him collapse. And I'm like, no. And then they go in, and he's in there for 2 minutes. And they come out. I was like, he didn't make it. Blah, blah, blah. And nobody's died in my life yet. I've never had any death. Family, nothing. This was the first time I've ever seen anybody, anything, death near to me outside of TV. Never. So I was like, it hit me hard. And I was like, damn. So they're like, okay, it's $200. Or, but if you want us to bury him and do that, it's another $200. But if you want him to do that, it's $500. And I was like, give me my dog. I went to Walmart. I bought ponchos because it was kind of raining and shovels. I was like, I'm going to bury myself. You're not getting more of my fucking money. Like, I was already pissed all this money I spent over there. So then the dog, I go, and I remember the moment was when I took the dog out of the car, and in my hands, it's like his body was lifeless. And there was no movement. I was like, oh, he's dead. He's not here. That's when it really hit me. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, damn, you could really go any moment. I never crossed my mind because it's real, but it's not real, right? So dog's in my hand. I have him, and I realize, man, he's dead. Nothing, right? So then I go, I bury him. And then the next week, it was like, I got to do a mic. If I don't do it, like, I'm never going to do it. I got to do now. And then I remember that the next day, like, there was a party at the house. There were people over. I was there. I went upstairs to go to sleep. But then the next day, like, there was guys there. I don't know what was going on. I just left. And that's it. We never messaged each other. And I don't think I spoke to her for, like, 6 months. And that was like our breakup. I was like, I didn't message her. She didn't message me. I think the dog was kind of, because I'd still go over there and walk the dog and things like that. So the dog was kind of holding us together. Charlie, rest in peace. And then that was it. So the next, I went to fucking Bobby Buds used to host it. Shoe Bus. Bobby Bugs and this tall dude, Chris Condren, were hosting. And I went and I drank a little bit before. And I had some like a Doer or something in the car. And then I was like, I drank a little bit. When I got there, I got some beers and I signed up. And that was like 30th. And I was like, I didn't know there was that big. I was like, oh my God. So part of me was like sitting there. And I was like, I'm not waiting. I'm not going. Because part of me didn't want to do it. So I was kind of pretending like, So finally I had 2 PBRs and then I left. And then I was like kind of bummed out. So I Googled a strip club. And I started driving straight to the strip club, and on the way over there, I've never been there, so I look at Google reviews, and I see my first review I see is like the guys there are really hot, and I'm like, what? And I was driving to a gay strip club, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, is this happening? So then I go to what is it, VIPs over there by Wicker Park. I don't know if it's still there or not, but I go there because I've been there before. So I go to the strip club, and I start telling the stripper like that I'm a comedian. I print a coupon to go in. I get a coupon on my phone so I can get half off. I tell the stripper, like, I'm a comedian. It was sad. And then I leave. I go to McDonald's, get the Big Mac, fish fillet nuggets. I don't know if they had the orange high C.
You smoke crack after this? You're just doing all that healthy shit.
And then I went to bed. And then the next week, I went to Three Dead Moose. Yeah. Rena Khan and David Drake were hosting it. And my cousin and her husband, one of my best friends, went with me. But they were like, we want to go with you. I was like, all right, you can go with me. But I'm telling you, when I go up, you got to leave the room. Because it was my first time. I was like, and it's like 3 comics are almost there. They're waiting. We're watching it. And I'm like, I wasn't kidding. You got to go. So they left. They went to the other side. And I did my set and I recorded it. And I got a few laughs. You know what I mean? It's so horrible. Like one of the jokes is probably about, I think, having sex with my mom. I don't know if it was a Hitler thing. But, you know, that first open mic, like, dude open mic the first year, it's like fucking incest, rape, maybe Hitler, some like, I don't know. And, you know, and then maybe a stupid, goofy pun joke or something mixed in with rape. Yeah, it's disgusting, you know. So I did that. And then after that day, I think almost every night, not every night, but a few nights that week. And after that, it was like basically 6 nights a week I was doing like that first year, there was one night I did 4 or 5 mics in a week, and that's when I used to get up to go to work at 8. I don't have to be at work at 10:30 now. I'm 10:30 to 7. But then I was like, man, I used to fucking I had to get up early, and I would go to Milwaukee. I'd mix my time, and then after that it was just every night.
Off to the races.
Yeah, it was just comedy.
So I want to start off with the dog stuff, which is, first off, I'm a big softie. I like, especially when it comes to dogs and cats. Dogs and cats, I don't know, like, I don't know what it is. It's like their innocence.
Well, because you can't, they're not like, they can't tell you if they're hurt. It's that thing. You know what I mean?
Very
and
primal.
they're always like, they're really nice to you. At least dogs. I don't know about cats.
Yeah.
There's the dog cat thing.
But you buried your own dog like a superhero,
and it was very not lethargic. What's the word? Cathartic. Like, because I looked it up. Is like you got to go at least 4 feet. So it took me a few hours to get it. Because if you go 2 feet or anything, people are like, not people, like animals are gonna come and take the body. I was like, that is not happening. So I was out there for hours. It was a great workout. I was like, man, if anybody needs a hole dig, like I liked it. You know what I mean? I was like, this felt good. Like I'll dig some holes now if I could, man.
And that was your first experience with death. Was that dog?
That's it. Nobody. Yeah. A year later, my great grandma died, but before that was it. It was just the dog. Like nothing. I never felt it.
What? So it sounds like it impacted you. What was? So you felt the dog. You could feel the lifelessness. What was it that clicked exactly? Because it sounds like you had a realization.
Like you can go. You don't know when you're gonna go, and you can go. And we're gonna go. Yeah. Like before, it's like you're gonna die. No, I'm not. I'm not gonna die.
I'm in my 20s.
Yeah, that's fucking. That's for other people. People on TV. I'm never like. They're gonna Walt Disney me. I will live forever. There's something. You know what I mean? But then it's like, oh no, we're all gonna go. And it's like, so if I want to do what I want to do, I need to do it now. Because you don't know when you're going to go, and you are going to go.
It's a very mature way to look at it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do the bury the dead dog thing, but I'm very impressed by that.
Well, I do a lot of things out of spite. And I was like, I'm not giving these people my money. So I was like, went to Walmart, like spite. Like Brian Morton, I really got focused on the podcast because we were on Facebook. And then Joe Rogan just got that Spotify contact for like $100 million. And then Brian Morton posted about it. And then I commented because I got on Spotify. And I was like, oh, the Loboden Podcast is also on Spotify. And he gave me like some comment like, really? Like something like that. And I was just like, you son of a bitch, So then I was just like really focused on getting it. Eventually, he came on the podcast during the pandemic and we did it and became like friends. But at first, like that really motivated me to be like, no, fuck you, dude. Yeah, fuck you. I was like, if somebody, one of your other comics, it'd be okay if they were promoting their podcast, but not me. And I was like, all right.
Have you ever seen Last Dance with about Michael Jordan?
I've seen 3 episodes.
Okay, I think.
But I didn't get to the rest. I didn't get to the rest of it. It's 12, right?
It's something like that. But the spite thing reminds me of that. Like trying to succeed to spite other people. I
had a wall of hate. A comedy wall of hate in my room. The size of this wall was all flyers. It eventually became a wall of like flyers and it started off as a wall of hate. Either it was a comedy competition in Milwaukee where this guy, I think Osmi something, and he doesn't do comedy anymore. We had a competition. It was like a bracket, like March Madness. And I was going against this guy, I think Alex Anderson. He's in Colorado now. And you go, then he goes, and then the audience chooses who goes, and you go to the next bracket. And I remember, he did a set, then I did my set, and I was like, and I felt bad. I was like, man, I just blew this guy out the water, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I felt kind of bad, for doing well. And then when we did the thing, they did like, okay, Jhovany, Alex. And like, I didn't clap for myself. When they asked my name, I was like, it felt like I can't.
It's dirty.
It's dirty. So I didn't. And I remember I was like, when I heard it, I was like, did he do a little better than me? Because one of the things, like as a comic, you're like, wait, when his name was Steve Breeze in LA now, he's like, what about Alex Anderson? And they were like, Jhovany Diaz. And I was like, I noticed that, but I didn't. And then I was like, and he won it. And I was like, no. And then 2 days later, one of the guys, his name was Mr. JJ, he dropped out of the competition. And I saw the post, hey, we dropped. So what we do is we're choosing the people who lost the best of the best set of the people who lost. And I was like, oh shit, it's gonna be me. And it was Osmi. And I was like, I print it and I put it on my fucking wall. And then another one was like Ricky March, who's been on the podcast that I'm friends with. He did a show in Zion. by me where I live. I live in Waukegan. It was, and I was at Chuck E. Cheese that day, but I asked him, I was going to go to the show on purpose to see if I can get a guest spot. So I had my little 5 minutes ready, and I showed up early, and I was like, hey, I'm just going to watch the show, and he gave me a guest spot. And I remember I did really well, and people went up to me. He's like, can you do more time? And I was like, no, it's a guest spot. I only get 5 minutes. And then the next day, he's like, I want to thank everybody, blah, blah, blah. And I saw everything. I was like, I was like, my name wasn't on it. I was like, Wall of Hate. So I printed it. I had it, but slowly, that's how it started. But it ended up being like flyers and things of shows. So it was like, I don't know if you ever saw that Simpsons episode where Homer, they put a thing on his wall, like, you're going to be here forever or something. And then he ends up putting pictures of Maggie, the youngest daughter, all over. And he covers it where instead of saying you're here forever, it says do it for her or something. He turned into something like that. But it started with, spite. Like, fuck you. That's, So that's how I work. That's how I got good at golf, too. Spite.
So it sounds like it started off as... okay. That's so interesting. Okay, so you start off with... spite, anger, I can do better than that guy. Fuck that person. Mm-hmm. You seem like a calmer guy now. And so it's just over time it naturally changed?
Yeah, especially out of my 20s. Like, there's something, I think, in your 20s. I forget there's a chemical, there's something that we all have. I don't know, it's just testosterone, something else. I heard it would, like, if they locked up males from 18 to 23, I think 90% of crime would drop. Like, I just remember how I was versus now, like, I'm just chill. I don't, and it's not. And I don't. It's like I don't have the energy.
Do you think it's a testosterone thing? Because I was the same.
It was something else too. But like there was some. I remember like listening, and they were like talking about. But it was more than it was like something else that males have, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Because I remember how I was, man. I was like, even when I played golf, I was a psychopath, and that was me. Like, what does it say? Something about your parents. You don't listen to your parents, but you copy. Mm-hmm. Like I used to caddy that was just psycho. I won't say his name, but he was a corporate lawyer and he was a psychopath.
Like a legitimate.
No, but he got a little upset. Okay. But he was like the best golfer there. Sure. But I was kind of like him and Tiger Woods were kind of like people that inspired me. I was like, he had like a twirl, the way he dressed, and I was like, this is cool. But he had a temper, and I didn't realize I picked up on it. Like I would throw my clubs, get angry, and then. Now I don't. I have like expectations are realistic. Yeah. Like before I was like, what? I didn't make that. And it was like most pros don't make that. Like calm down. But it was I was a psychopath. I'm on the golf course. Yeah. Outside of life, I've always been very chill.
Or with comedy. It sounds like anything you're competitive about. Anything that you feel like I can get good at this.
I'm very angry with not so much other people. It's like I get really angry with myself. I fight with myself a lot. Like before a show, like. It's funny. People still go up. I did a show in Racine, and this guy went up to me because before a show, I was pacing, whatever. The same thing I always do. And they're like, some guy went up to me. He's like, hey, man, you got this, blah, blah. And I wanted to tell him, like, I know I have this, but this is just how I am. Like, before this, like, you suck. I hate yourself. Imposter syndrome. You shouldn't be doing this, blah, blah, blah. And then it turns into fuck them. Fuck this audience. You'll show them, blah, blah, blah. You're going to blow them out. But it starts with a lot of stuff. Hey, and then I get on stage, the mic. As soon as I get the mic and I say the first few words, I'm comfortable, but before it's like, I hate myself.
And I know that young anger very well. Like I remember I went through do you know who David Goggins is?
Yeah.
I went through my
fucking son of a bitch. I fucking pulled my fucking because of him because I pulled
to be David
Goggins. I was pulled like my Achilles and then I just kept running. I was like, I'll die. David Goggins. I couldn't run for like a month because of that.
Why? Okay. With someone like that, do you think... Because I know I've heard him talk about, I'm special, fuck you, anybody could be me, or whatever. I think there is something unique about that guy. Like, I don't think the average person could be that. You know what I'm saying?
I think the average person can... There's something that could turn him into that because he was like... He was that guy at the Steak and Shake, fucking killing cockroaches, eating donuts, like... There's something that could turn everybody. I feel like there's something that could turn into David Goggins.
In everybody that you need there's a switch.
There's a switch. There's something there, and then you could go that way. Or you can go the other way and just go deep into the donuts, and then fuck it. There's like it can go both ways. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, and I was in my David Goggins mode for a few months, just constantly running, and I was real aggressive with people. Like I remember I was talking to this girl, and she was like, "I want to learn how to play piano." Then get a fucking piano tomorrow. If you don't work on piano every fucking day, you're not gonna get there. And she was like, "All right, okay, all right." Yeah. And I had to like turn myself down a bit because I was becoming crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know if how like it feels like a knob for me personally. Like I gotta turn it up sometimes, and I gotta turn it down. For you, is it a knob? Is it a switch? What is it?
No, it's always like aggressive towards myself. But I've learned to explain to people like this is how I am with me, and I try to like most people are not like this. Like they like positive affirmations or like you can do this, blah blah blah. And it just doesn't work for me. Like for me, it's like you are shit. You will always be shit. Like that putting myself down motivates me. It does not work for other people.
Was your upbringing like that? Like, did you grow up with your mom and dad?
Yeah, for the most up until I was 16, they were both there, and then I was like, then I found out like, wait, my dad was cheating. There was another family in Mexico, and then whatever.
Wait, let's not skim over that. That's fascinating.
Yeah,
Wait,
yeah.
What?
So everything was kind of normal, right? Like I always thought I was middle class, right? But like numbers wise, we were, I guess, poverty line, but it never felt like it. You know what I mean? Or maybe we were, I don't know, but house, TV. Yeah. So my dad used to paint. Fucked up his eyes painting, and then he
fucked up his eyes?
Yeah, like I remember he had to go to eye clinic, so he couldn't paint anymore because he fucked up his eye just painting over years. So then he became a coyote, so he'd bring people over the border. So then like we have TVs. I'm sure drugs got involved somehow because my dad, there's a joke about it where I talk about when I was 12, my dad gave me a Tech 9 pistol to keep under my bed at night, which is a true story. And the premise of the joke is basically like, you ever look at somebody and you realize, oh, you talk about your childhood, oh, maybe it's not normal, because I thought it was normal. Like I was Jim Flanagan, comedian. I was talking to him at Zany's, and then I told him the story. Yeah, my dad, the Tech 9, blah blah. And I was just looking at him. He was looking at me like, he's like, do you talk about that on stage? Like, no. Why? He's like, that's insane. I was like, really? Like, it's those things that you think are normal, and when you talk to other people, they're not. And I was like, oh yeah, I never thought about talking about that. He's like, you got to do a bit about that. I was like, oh yeah, I guess it's kind of weird. Like he would give me he'd give me a Tech 9 fucking 30-round pistol to keep under my bed. 12 years old, and he was, and like now I'm older. I was like, all right, he's giving it to me just in case when people are after him, he wants me to just be. But I was like, at the time, I was like, oh yeah, my dad's giving me a gun, just protect the house. That's it. You know what I mean?
Okay, so I'm gonna piece all this together. So are you in California at this point? Or
no, this is in Waukegan.
So you're in Waukegan.
Our house. When we got our first house. That's our house because we're apartments. Yeah. And that was our first house.
So you're in Waukegan, one child, or two, three brothers?
I think it was me and my sister.
Okay.
Me and Evelyn.
You and your sister, Waukegan, you're about 12. Your dad was a painter, had to stop, and then he became a coyote?
Yes.
And we're assuming that drugs got involved.
I think so.
Okay.
But I'm not, like, looking back, like, I don't ask questions about things I don't know answers about. And I do that to this fucking day.
So okay. You know what I mean? It sounds similar to the breakup stuff too, where it's like, look, I'm gonna let this fall apart on its own.
Yeah, I don't need to know why, whatever. I'm not that person. Like my girlfriend is, her best friend is, and I'm teaching them to like be like me. Like if she asks for a babysitter and she has like reasons to not, they shouldn't come. She'll give a message. I just don't feel comfortable with it. I'm like, just say, oh, sorry, it's okay. We don't need a babysitter anymore. Just leave it at that. But like she needs to explain or needs to know I don't need nothing. Yeah. I don't need closure. It's like, ghost me. All right. I don't. It's like moving on. I try to keep it simple, especially now that I'm older. You know what I mean? Like I'm not that person.
So then you find out that your dad had a secret family?
16, I started getting hints of like there was somebody, maybe another one, and I was like, what? And I was like, wait, what? Yeah. It was so weird. I was like, really? And then because it was in Mexico, there was maybe another kid, and I was like, so around when I was 16, they split up. Yeah. So we ended up like selling or losing the house, not sure. But then me and mom moved to another house in Zion that was more affordable. And then for like 2 years, like I didn't talk to my dad. I was like resentful. I got into a fight with him. I was at the McDonald's in Waukegan by Grand, and he said something, or my mom said something like that. My dad might have threatened her, wanted to hit her, so I called him and I cursed him out. And I was like, and I didn't talk to her for like 2 years. But then we started finally talking again because he started working at the golf course where I worked. So we worked together. And then we would sometimes, I think we went on a loop together, like caddy together and stuff like that. And then we kind of became friendly again. And then we might have even played golf at one point, but then he got deported. And then 12 years ago or 13 or something like that, he got deported. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know why? This is why he got deported. He was, they raided, so he lived at the golf. I still work there. I'm friends with the pro. Yeah. Or he's actually one of my customers in my day job. But the house he was living at there's a house on the golf course got raided. And like they ransacked. Yeah. No, this wasn't ICE. This is like police with FBI. Like at first there was more involved in it because at first I thought it was just a gun charge. My dad had a gun. It was loaded. Back then you couldn't have a loaded gun. It was before concealed carry. You had to keep it separate and ammo separate in Illinois. It was like the last state. And then I thought that was it. Oh, it's a gun, whatever. But then I found out, he had a tracking device. So, because like there was a lot of drugs running through Chicago that like my friend's uncle, he had a shop in Highwood, and he was one of the biggest distributors like of heroin connected to Chop and all of them. And I didn't even know, like his parents did a second mortgage on his house to help that guy out. And then he was friends with my dad, all friends with each other. And then he dipped and went to Mexico, so he lost a bunch of money and things like that. And there was a thing on the news on like one of the local news channel about him, my friend's uncle. And these are people that I've met, I knew, so I know there was like when I found out about the tracking device and the whole house got raided. There's obviously a little bit more than just fucking
being deported.
Just having a gun and then.
So have you ever met this potential other family?
Oh yeah, I hung out with them when I went to Mexico a few years ago. Like, there's two brothers, right? And one of them, like, kind of like, I want to try to go again because one of them, I think, looked up to me because he's a funny guy. I knew I did comedy. So it was funny, I was there with my cousin, and we were all there at the house. And there's two of them. And I was like, wait, I thought there was one. And then I'm like, is the other one my brother too? But I wasn't sure. So I asked my cousins, like, because I don't want to be like, are you my brother? Like, because everybody knows, but except for me, I'm like, is he? So I asked my cousin, that's my brother. He's like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, yeah. Well, I met him and I hung out with them one of them as a kid. Like, sometimes I'll message them to try to get a hold of my dad because my dad, I think he's doing better, but a few years, the last year or two, up until now, maybe not, because I saw his picture. He looked pretty good. He was smoking crystal because crystal's cheaper than cocaine.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Whew. So, okay, so let me try to do a quick recap here. Let me see if I understand. All right. So, living in Waukegan, you have a sister. Your dad can't do the painting anymore, becomes a coyote, then probably gets into some Breaking Bad shit. Has his own family in Mexico. As you're getting older, you start to find inklings of things. Yeah. Then your dad and your mom get a divorce. He threatened.
Well, they just split up. She barely got divorced like a year ago.
Oh, for real?
Technically, yeah.
Okay. Well, they split up, and you have a falling out with him
for like a year or two until he starts kind of working at the country club where I'm at, and then we kind of like rekindle. Until he got deported.
And then he got deported.
I was so pissed we got deported.
You were pissed at him, because he's
pissed at him because. He was. I wish maybe me and the lawyer would have communicated this better to him. Yeah. But it's like back then, or I think it still happens. If you're Mexican, you can't just bond yourself out if you're considered high risk. They think you're going to dip to Mexico, you get an immigration hold. So you can't just bond out and go to your court dates. You're stuck in there. So he was stuck in there until his court dates, and we potentially were going to beat the case. You know, my lawyer and him, because I've had the same lawyer since I've been 16.
Why'd you have a lawyer at 16?
I got in a car. Okay, this is kind of funny. It involves my dad. I have a bit about this. It's in that. Okay. My first car was a Mitsubishi Eclipse 92. It kind of looks like those Talons, that style. My dad won in a poker game. Him and his buddies were 2 days in the basement playing poker. He comes out here. I got you a car, right? Also, he was a poker cheat. So then I got in a car accident with that car on the way to work. I used to work at a toy store in Gurnee called Toyco. So I'm going to work, and then I get in a car accident. The front gets totaled, but I'm such a Mexican. I'm like, I can't not go to work. I get a ride, and then the white manager, she's like, you don't have to come. It's okay. I was like, no, I wait. And worked like the last 2 hours for $5.50 an hour. Yeah. And then I got dropped off and came. But the judge gave me 2 years supervision, which is insane. So because of that 2 years, I don't know why. It was my first ticket. I didn't know that was a lot. You know what I mean? That's a lot, especially for a first time like offense. My first ticket ever. I got it, and then because of that, I would keep getting tickets over and over. And I met my lawyer, John. His office was next to the courthouse. Yeah. So I went in there to talk to him or ask for the lawyer, and he was him, and he's been my lawyer ever since.
Good guy?
Yeah.
Well, good for him.
Yeah. He did some acting and things like that. Yeah, we talk about that stuff sometimes. John.
Okay, so I'm trying to put it all together. So now your dad is in Mexico, potentially on crystal meth.
He was smoking crystal for a little bit. Like I remember I FaceTime. I was like, look at this. That drug face. You know what I mean?
Have you ever not crystal meth? I assume, but like
kind of an accident because of the Molly in Miami was when it started getting cut. I could tell. Like if you were gonna ask me, ever did crystal? I call Molly meth. I did in Miami once on accident.
I hear that story?
Huh? So when Molly first came out, it was Molly. It was pure. Like I don't know if you've done Molly, but it feels like euphoria. Like I don't like doing Molly.
What's the difference between ecstasy and Molly? Because I know there's
Molly's supposed to just be pure ecstasy.
Ecstasy
you know what I mean?
is what's cut and mixed with shit.
It's like you get the tab or the pill. It's supposed to be the powder, so it's supposed to be pure MDMA, pure ecstasy. So I remember the first time I did it, I was like, or one of the times I actually did it, I was like, the music, euphoria, you feel good. Like the only thing I don't like about it is like I don't talk to women. I'm not social with it. Like with booze, I'll talk to girls, not social. Like, cause this is me. I'm listening to music, looking at the lights, and it's like this chick over here. There's no way she's gonna make me feel any better than how I feel now. So I don't talk to women. But then this is when somebody tries to gas you up on something, now I know like all right, they're bullshitting you because it's like oh man. My friend's drug dealer was like, I got this shit, it's the shit, and blah, 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 and talking all this game, and I was like, and we get it, and we do it, and I don't feel euphoria. We're just paranoid all night, and I'm scared, and we couldn't sleep. Yeah. Like, there was a point where Molly got so popular, they started cutting it, and then, so, there's that website, Arrowhead, where they can see, like, they'll take Molly from certain cities, and they'll show you, okay, we tested this is what's actually in it, this is what's actually, and you look at it, most of it was cut with some type of amphetamine.
That's okay. I'm trying to keep up with you. Mm-hmm. That's okay because you know when you were saying that you have ADHD. Yeah. I'm very confident.
Pretty sure. I hear.
Like, is your wife like the opposite of you? Is your life like real chill or something?
No.
Okay. No. You guys are both kind of up.
Not as bad as me, but she's like active, people, very social. Blah, blah, blah. Sometimes she gets her mood when she's not. She has her waves. So I don't know if she has like some type of depression because she gets her moods where she has those days where it's like nothing, but usually very cheery. But I notice there's like waves with her. Okay. And then it's like there's just days where she does nothing.
Does she like that you do comedy? Because I know that can strain relationships.
I don't do it like I used to. Like I told her if I did comedy like I used to, I told her we wouldn't even be together. You wouldn't see me. Like when I was doing comedy, I'd be out every night. Right. That was it. You know what I mean?
Okay, so you started in Chicago years ago, but like that first year you're in it, and then what starts happening? Like how?
I didn't stop. It was nonstop until the pandemic. So when the pandemic, it was the first time I had a break, like in 6 years, and I didn't even realize I was going so hard for 6 years. I was like, I saw The Mandalorian because I was like, oh, I want to see this, and it came out like 2 years earlier or whatever it came out, and I finally got to see it, and I was just watching stuff and relaxing and
being happy.
It was like just being relaxed because look, whenever I didn't do comedy, I felt guilty not doing comedy, being on a boat, whatever. Unless I was like did a lot, whatever. Like when I feel where I exhaust myself, like the end of the day, I could relax, but if I'm not to that point, it's hard for me to relax. I feel like I could be doing more, but.
And did the quarantine feel like it gave you the excuse to?
I couldn't do comedy. Nobody was doing comedy,
There's
so
no one
I didn't feel any guilt. I just relaxed and whatever. And then we met during the quarantine because then I was just kind of like I just chilled. There wasn't any comedy, and I was like, I ain't doing Zoom. Yeah, I'd rather I'll kill myself. I'm not doing that trash. And then I just was doing the podcast because nobody else was doing it, and it was perfect. And that's when the podcast went from, I would talk more about comedy, and the podcast went from just comedy talk to just kind of fun talk. Because what happened during the pandemic is I was listening to Rogan and Bert Kreischer, and they were just like, oh my God, the pandemic is so scary. And I was like, I specifically picked that episode to just escape from, all I was seeing all day was pandemic, we're all going to die. And that was my like escape. And now you guys are like bumming me out. And I was like, you know what? the Loboden. If I do other stuff, but the Loboden is never going to be serious. Like, it's the escape from, like, life is fucking serious as hell.
Yeah.
Everything sucks. And everything doesn't suck, but it, you know, it's like too much news. It's like, you're going to lose it. You're going to be, either way you go, you're fucking losing your mind. So it's like, it was always wanted to be an escape for an hour. It was fun from that point. Cause it's like, I was like, you know what? It's going to come out every week, no matter what. And it's going to be fun. Cause it's like, fuck, we need an escape, dude.
Your podcast sounds like the antithesis to my podcast, which is hilarious.
But it's like, I do like, sometimes I like to listen to something, you know, like this, or maybe I'll get my, like 10% of the month. I do want to listen about politics sometimes, but most of the time I don't. And then, you know, you need everything, you know what I mean?
It's a mix,
it can't be
balance.
all, I can't, sometimes I want to see something, I want to see Happy to Go more, something I want to see something with more substance. But
so you're going hard for 6 years. Pandemic hits. You finally have to slow down. Then you start the podcast because you're like, just something for fun, just something to.
No, so I was forced into it. I was pushed into it. My buddy Eric Pinnell, he has a podcast, Busting Balls, and he's like, after an open mic, I talked to him. I was like, yeah, man, I just ate this girl's ass and I had sex with no condom and blah blah blah, and then her brother killed herself, and I'm like. And every week some stupid bullshit that I was doing because during the week don't drink at mics. I had maybe one or two after my set. That's it. But weekend, that was my time. When I didn't have a show, and I would tell me stories. He's like, "You should start a podcast." I was like, no, I'm a stand up. I don't do podcasts. All I care about is stand up. So I did his. We recorded it outside of Cigars and Stripes in Berwyn in his car on I think that.
H5.
H5, one of those, right? And then we recorded, I did it, and he's like, you should start your own. He's like, you know what? Pick a name for it, find the art in this format, and then go to iTunes and make sure you don't have it, and then do the name. He was like, just next week, it was like almost assignments, and I did it. And then I had equipment, because I tried to start one a few years ago, and it was too much, and I still had the equipment. So the first Lobodens were at bars or libraries and things like that. Or people's houses. I would just go to them and I'd record it. But then the pandemic, it was Abi Sanchez. I was supposed to go to his house, and then the pandemic hit. And I was like, oh, we're still on for next week or this Tuesday? He's like, not so much. And I saw James Webb. He's like, hey, I got a studio. It's sanitized, blah, blah, blah. And I messaged him. I was like, hey, can I rent it? And then that's how it went from like the bars to people's houses to the studio. Okay.
So you guys are together. It's been about 4 months, and you guys decide you want to have a kid. Who brought that up?
I don't even know if it brought up, or is it maybe, I don't remember, but it was just like, yeah, come at me, have a baby, fertile, like, but I remember like that first month, she was late, but then she wasn't pregnant, and I was like, no. I was like crying. I was like, oh my God, I can't have kids. I always thought I couldn't have kids because I never had any scares, and I never came in people.
But you never used condoms. You pull out
in the beginning, I would use condoms, and then I was like, no, because like somebody said you don't have to, and I was like, oh, you don't. And I was just used to pulling out for years. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then like when I heard people were coming inside each other, like I found out that a majority of people I knew were coming inside each other. I was like, it blew my mind. I was like, what? You're not afraid about getting somebody pregnant?
Yeah.
And I don't know. They're like, oh, she's in birth control. Like I would never. Like, I did it like 4 times in my life.
That would give me anxiety.
Yeah, I did it like with an ex who's the patch just kicked in. And this cripple, handicap. She came.
Wait. I can see you doing your best to not be offensive, and somehow you made it more offensive.
Yeah, like what? I didn't know she was handicapped.
What is going on? Is it physical, mental? What's going on?
She had a pacemaker, right? So I didn't.
Oh, for her heart.
No, she hyperextended her knee.
Okay.
At the Renaissance Fair, so it was like in her lower back. She had some type of pacemaker.
Because like injured would be.
I met her on Tinder, and then the first time we ever hooked up or met, I don't think we had sex because it's the first time I ever did acid.
Okay.
So I did acid the first time with a stranger I met on Tinder and came over to my house.
Yeah.
Not a good idea. I did acid, Molly. Allegedly, maybe cocaine. This is a character now, right? This is Alex Jones. This is my character. My character did all these drugs, and then I remember like it wasn't happening. Like, the erection was like no. But then the next time she came over, we had sex. She said she couldn't get pregnant because of the thing. So I was like, so I think I came in her that time. And then the other time she came, I think maybe it was the last time we had sex, she said something about, I was about to come in her, and then she was like, I was like, you can't get pregnant, right? And she said something that threw me off. Like, wait, what'd you say, bro? And I was like, what? I remember I like dismounted. I was like, no! Like, I thought you couldn't. So I remember, but that's like one of the very rare times that I ever like caved somebody. And then this old chick in Rockford.
Oh, she's old though. It's all.
Yeah, when she told me I can't have kids, I met her at a Crane's Butter show. She was just sitting there. Her daughter was Crane's Butter.
What is that?
He's a booker who does these shows in like southern Freeport, Illinois, Mustangs in South Beloit. Like, there's a point somebody will probably bring you out there. You'll do a feature or a guest spot or somebody in the other places. So, right, they're not doing shows in the summer right now. It's out of season. But yeah, she was there, and then her friends at the bar. I do a joke like, "Who's single?" And I saw her raise her hand. I was like, "Eh." And then I went to give out stickers, and then we exchanged information. And I was driving home, and I used to have sex with this cop. So the cop was messaging me. He's like, "Where you at?" And I'm like, "On the way there." But then the older lady messaged me, and I was like, didn't want to have sex with anybody because I really wanted to go home and eat. But it's like, I was in that time. Now I just do what I want. But in that morning, I was like, as a dude, I just felt wrong to say no to having sex. Or as I phrase it, say no to pussy.
Sure. That's a classy way.
I'm from Waukegan. That's how we talk.
Right.
But I was like, so I went back and I was like, fuck it. I remember the next morning she was like, we had sex again in the morning before I went to work. She's like, oh, you can't have kids? Like, no, I can't have kids. I was like, so I came in her. So that was one of the few, and I left my vape pen there.
I hear that when you have sex with someone with the intention of having a kid, it's better. It feels better.
Oh yeah, dude. It's fucking hot.
It's like your primal instincts.
So
yeah.
It's fucking,
So okay.
It's part of it too. It's like, yeah.
That's
I'm gonna get you pregnant, bitch.
You said that,
shit like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We'll decide.
Okay.
It's pretty hot.
I'm gonna start wrapping it up.
Yeah, I never wrapped it up.
So you guys purposefully, she's doing the Kegels and the thing. You get her pregnant, or you find out she's pregnant.
Oh yeah, so that one she wasn't, and I was like, remember I cried, I can't have kids, because I never had any scares, and I figured I should have had a scare by now.
Yeah.
But then the next one, she was pregnant. Like, we went in the car, and then peed on the stick, and it was like pregnant. Then she went, and it was like pregnant. But it's funny, during the whole pregnancy, it was just like, all right, she's pregnant. Or when I had a kid, when he was born, people asked me, how does it feel like to be a father? And it was like, I don't know. Like, it seemed normal. Like, all right, I'm just the dad, this is my son. It wasn't like, you had those moments of like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, oh shit, I have a kid. But it just felt like, I think that's always life. Okay, this is the next step, either the good or bad thing. Like, this is just how it is.
So she already has, you have an older.
Yeah, I have a stepson.
Okay, you have a stepson, and then you have your seed son.
Seed baby.
A seed baby.
Monsanto baby.
How, and does it still feel not crazy? It just is?
No, like when people would ask me, I just didn't know how to respond. I was like, it feels normal. Yeah. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm a dad now. I was like, I'm a dad. This is what I do. I clean the diaper. I do this. I think maybe that's always been because I've always adjusted very well to any changes or whatever happens in my life. And that's it's just how it is. It's like, all right, my dad got deported. I don't worry about things that are out of my control. And for years, it's like, I don't. It's like,
you make more sense to me now. When we first met at Mike's podcast, when we were talking about, I think we were talking about global warming. And I was like, so you have a kid, you're not worried about that? And you didn't, you still, no. In hearing your life story, that makes sense. Yeah. That's like a running theme.
I just have to adjust, like I've been moving, blah, 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 do what I can.
Just put the gas mask on, kid. You got it.
Yeah, like there's only so many hours in the day. And it's like, I can put
that energy into,
you know what I mean?
So
fucking Saudis.
Do you plan on having more?
Maybe I'd like to have a daughter. We'd like to have a daughter, but this son of a bitch is just like me when I was younger. He's such a handful. Like this, I was a psycho. Yeah, and he's a psycho. He's
chip off the old block, man.
Insane, and it's so that's right. But yeah, dude, like he is super high energy. He's insane. He was like me. Like my mom's like, I was on the phone the other day. She's like, Jessica, oh my God. She's like, he's just like you. And it's like, oh, I heard her like have that flashback of me. She's like, poor Jessica. Like, and I remember hearing about how bad, because the boys on my side were going to be bad. Were always like that from my dad's side. And my sister, they were super calm. And I was like, man, I'm telling you, man, it's going to be, I have a feeling since he's a boy, it's going to be just like, no, because, her stepson, he was really calm. But I was like, man, it's just.
Is that why you want a daughter?
Huh?
Do you want a daughter because you want a more chilled out kid?
No, just it's like you have I wanted a daughter first.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't want a son, I wanted a daughter because I was afraid of this. Because I was like a daughter. Plus if you're a dad, the daughter's always like, they always love their dads.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're their dad, and the dads will be like, "You're my dad." I was like, "Pussy, what?" Fuck you, motherfucker! Like it's like, it was cool. It's nice knowing you, motherfucker.
They're gonna try to fight you when he's 17.
Yeah. There's those teenage years and blah blah blah.
And how do you feel like when he inevitably sees the podcast, and how do you
sorry, but I've always been honest. Like my niece, I kind of help raise. My other sister, who's 16, I've always been very honest with kids. Like me and my niece, we saw somebody doing heroin maybe a year ago, and she's like between 7 and 11. I'm really bad with numbers, and I remember like with the apartment she lives at, it's kind of ghetto. And then there was somebody there, and I saw like the spoon and whatever. I was like, this bitch is doing heroin. And then she asked me, and I explained, oh, this is heroin, this is drugs, this is why people do drugs. She's probably had some type of trauma. But I'm always been honest with kids about. I don't like lying to kids because I didn't like being lied to, especially about drugs. And I hate it. Like I lie when I have to for your safety, but I I don't like lying.
It feels like when you lie about drugs in particular, it makes them more curious. They want to do even more because they don't know what it is.
Well, and then when I got lied to about drugs, it made me like, you went to Dare and you're like, a marijuana cigarette, it's 1,000 times more dangerous than a regular cigarette. And then when you find out, they lied, the weed's not that bad. And they lied to you and people are getting lied. And it's like, what else they lied to me about? And it was like, fuck it. So I don't, like, I don't know. Like, I'll do Santa Claus maybe, but it's like I don't like, because it's like I don't want to. I don't know. Like you do want to have the kids. They should have a good childhood. Shouldn't all be gloom and doom. So I like hold back. But if a kid asks me something, I'm pretty honest. You know what I mean? I kidded up a little bit, but I was like, no, this person is a drug addict because of this and that. You know what I mean? I'm like,
it's balance.
The drugstore came and then made him a drug. It doesn't work that way. There's no drugstore.
Okay.
All right.
I have one more question, and I request that you say it to the camera. Okay. Whenever your kid watches this, what do you want to say to him? You can say whatever you want to him.
Let's see. I try to be a good dad. Hopefully I am, really. Hopefully I'm a good dad, and I'm not like your grandpa, who's probably never going to see you, unfortunately. I think that's it.
It's beautiful, man. All right. Now we're going to take this picture. Okay. So you guys are together. It's been about 4 months, and you guys decide you want to have a kid. Who brought that up?
I don't even know if it brought up, or is it maybe, I don't remember, but it was just like, come at me, have a baby, fertile, but I remember that first month, she was late, but then she wasn't pregnant, and I was like, no. I was crying. I was like, oh my God, I can't have kids. I always thought I couldn't have kids because I never had any scares, and I never came in people, but I didn't use condoms a lot. In the beginning, I would use condoms, and then I was like, no, because somebody said you don't have to, and I was like, oh, you don't. And I was just used to pulling out. For years, you know what I mean? And then when I heard people were coming inside each other, I found out that a majority of people I knew were coming inside each other. I was like, it blew my mind. I was like, what? You're not afraid about getting somebody pregnant? Yeah. And I don't know, they're like, oh, she's in birth control. I would never. I did it 4 times in my life.
That would give me anxiety.
Yeah, I did it with an ex who the patch just kicked in. And this cripple, handicap. She came.
Wait. I can see you doing your best to not be offensive, and somehow you made it more offensive.
Yeah, what? I didn't know she was handicapped.
What is going on? Is it physical, mental? What's going on?
She had a pacemaker, right? So I didn't.
Oh, for her heart.
No, she hyperextended her knee
Okay.
at the Renaissance Fair. So it was like in her lower back. She had some type of pacemaker. Because
Sounds
whenever
like injured would
I
be
met her on Tinder, and then the first time we ever hooked up or met,
Yeah.
I don't think we had sex because it's the first time I ever did acid.
Okay.
So I did acid the first time with a stranger I met on Tinder who came over to my house.
Yeah.
Not a good idea. I did acid, Molly, allegedly maybe cocaine. This is a character now, right? It's like Alex Jones. This is my character. My character did all these drugs. And then I remember like it wasn't happening. Like the erection was like, no. But then the next time she came over, we had sex. She said she couldn't get pregnant because of the thing. So I was like, I think I came in her that time. And then the other time she came, I think maybe it was the last time we had sex. She said something about, I was about to come in her, and then I was like, you can't get pregnant, right? And she said something that threw me off. Like, wait, what'd you say, or what? And I was like, what? I remember I dismounted. I was like, no, like I thought you couldn't. So I remember, but that's like one of the very rare times that I ever like caved somebody. And then this old chick in Rockford.
Oh, she's old though. It's all.
Yeah, when she told me I can't have kids, I met her at a Crane's Butter show. She was just sitting there. Her daughter was Crane's Butter.
What is that?
He's a booker who does these shows in like southern Freeport, Illinois, Mustangs in South Beloit. Like, there's a point somebody will probably bring you out there. You'll do a feature or a guest spot or somebody in the other places. So, right, they're not doing shows in the summer right now. It's out of season. But yeah, she was there, and then her friends in the bar. I do a joke like, "Who's single?" And I saw her raise her hand. I was like, "Eh." And then I went to give out stickers, and then we exchanged information, and I was driving home, and I used to have sex with this cop. So the cop was messaging me. He's like, where you at? And I'm like, on the way there. But then the older lady messaged me, and I was like, didn't want to have sex with anybody because I really wanted to go home and eat. But it's like, I was in that time. Now I just do what I want. But in that morning, I was like, as a dude, I just felt wrong to say no to having sex. Or as I phrase it, say no to pussy.
Sure.
I'm from Waukegan. I'm from Waukegan. That's how we talk.
Right.
But I was like, so I went back and I was like, fuck it. I remember the next morning she was like, we had sex again in the morning before I went to work. She's like, oh, you can't have kids? Like, no, I can't have. I was like, so I came in her. So that was one of the few, and I left my vape pen there.
I hear that when you have sex with someone with the intention of having a kid, it's better. It feels better.
Oh yeah, dude. It's fucking hot.
It's like your primal instincts.
So
yeah.
Dude, it's fucking
So okay.
It's part of it too. It's like
That's
I'm gonna get you pregnant, bitch.
You said that.
Shit like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Pull it inside me. Blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
It's pretty hot.
I'm gonna start wrapping it up.
Yeah, I never wrapped it up. All right,
so you guys purposefully, she's doing the Kegels and the thing. You get her pregnant, or you find out she's pregnant.
Oh yeah, so that one she wasn't, and I was like, remember I cried, I can't have kids because I never had any scares, and I figured I should have had a scare by now.
Yeah.
But then the next one, she was pregnant. Like we went in the car and then peed on the stick, and it was like pregnant. Then she went and it was like pregnant. But it's funny, during the whole pregnancy, it was just like, all right, she's pregnant. Or when I had a kid, when he was born, people asked me, how does it feel like to be a father? And it was like, I don't know. Like it seemed normal. Like, all right, I'm just the dad. This is my son. It wasn't like you have those moments of like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, oh shit, I have a kid. But it just felt like, I think that's always life. Okay, this is the next step, either the good or bad thing. Like, this is just how it is.
So she already has, you have an older.
Yeah, I have a stepson.
Okay, you have a stepson, and then you have your seed son.
Seed baby.
A seed baby.
Monsanto baby.
How, and does it still feel not crazy? It just is?
No, like when people would ask me, I just didn't know how to respond. I was like, it feels normal. Yeah. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm a dad now. I was like, I'm a dad. This is what I do. I clean the diaper. I do this. I think maybe that's always been because I've always adjusted very well to any changes or whatever happens in my life. And that's it's just how it is. It's like, all right, my dad got ported. I don't worry about things that are out of my control. And for years, it's like, I don't. It's like,
you make more sense to me now. When we first met at Mike's podcast, when we were talking about, I think we was talking about global warming. And I was like, so you have a kid, you're not worried about that? And you didn't, you still.
No.
in hearing your life story, that makes sense. Yeah. That's like a running.
I just have to adjust, like I've been moving, blah, 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 and do what I can just with what I have.
Put the gas mask on, kid. You got it.
Yeah, like there's only so many hours in the day, and it's like I can put
that energy into.
You know what I mean?
So
fucking Saudis.
Do you plan on having more?
Maybe I'd like to have a daughter. We'd like to have a daughter, but this son of a bitch is just like me when I was younger. He's such a handful. Like this, I was a psycho. Yeah. And he's a psycho. He's
chip off the old block, man.
Insane. And it's that's right. But yeah, dude, like he is have super high energy. He's insane. He was like me. Like my mom's like, I was on the phone the other day. She's like, Jessica, oh my God. She's like, he's just like you. And it's like, oh, I heard her like have that flashback of me. She's like, poor Jessica. Like, and I remember hearing about how bad, because the boys on my side were going to be bad. Were always like that from my dad's side, and my sister, they were super calm. And I was like, man, I'm telling you, man, it's going to be, I have a feeling since he's a boy, it's going to be just like, no, because, her stepson, he was really calm. But I was like, man, it's just.
Is that why you want a daughter?
Huh?
Do you want a daughter because you want a more chilled out kid?
No, just it's like you have I wanted a daughter first.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't want a son. I wanted a daughter because I was afraid of this. You know what I mean? Because I was like a daughter. Plus if you're a dad, the daughter's always like, they always love their dads. Yeah. You know what I mean? They're their dad, and the dads will be like, "You're my dad." I was like, "Pussy, what?" Fuck you, motherfucker! Like it's like it was cool. It's nice knowing you, motherfucker.
He's gonna try to fight you when he's 17.
Yeah. There's those teenage years and blah blah blah.
And how do you feel like when he inevitably sees the podcast, and how do you
not dude, sorry, but I've always been honest. Like my niece, I kind of help raise. My other sister, who's 16, I kind of help. I've always been very honest with kids. Like me and my niece, we saw somebody doing heroin maybe a year ago, and she's like between 7 and 11. I'm really bad with numbers, and I remember like with the apartment she lives at, it's kind of ghetto. And then there was somebody there, and I saw like the spoon and whatever. I was like, this bitch is doing heroin. And then she asked me, and I explained, oh, this is heroin, this is drugs, this is why people do drugs. She's probably had some type of trauma. But like I'm always been honest with kids about. I don't like lying to kids because I didn't like being lied to, like especially about drugs. And I hate it. Like I lie when I have to for your safety, but I don't like lying.
It feels like when you lie about drugs in particular, it makes them more curious. They want to do even more because they don't know what it is.
Well, and then when I got lied to about drugs, it made me like, you went to DARE and you're like, a marijuana cigarette, it's 1,000 times more dangerous than a regular cigarette. And then when you find out they lied, weed's not that bad, and they lied to you, and people are getting lied. And it's like, what else they lied to me about? And it was like, fuck it. So I don't like. I don't know. Like I'll do Santa Claus maybe, but it's like I don't like, because it's like I don't want to. I don't know. Like you do want to have the kids. They should have a good childhood. Shouldn't all be gloom and doom. So I like hold back. But if a kid asks me something, I'm pretty honest. You know what I mean? I kid it up a little bit, but I was like, no, this person is a drug addict because of this, and that. You know what I mean? I'm like,
he's balanced.
The drugstore came and then made him a drug. It doesn't work that way. There's no drugstore.
Okay.
All right.
I have one more question, and I request that you say it to the camera. Okay. Whenever your kid watches this, what do you want to say to him? You can say whatever you want to him.
Let's see. I try to be a good dad. Hopefully, I am really hopefully I'm a good dad, and I'm not like your grandpa, who's probably never going to see you, unfortunately. I think that's it.
It's beautiful, man. All right, I'm going to take this picture.